Hello, guys, and welcome to Star Trek Bears Boldly Go. Lost Bears?
Lost Bears.
Lost
Yeah, I think
Bears,
that
yeah.
works. For the few of you that watched last week's episode, thank you very much. And if you got the reference of why we've called this Lost Bears,
I didn't,
James didn't. No. Um,
but
uh,
I'm not an old man, so.
I realised I needed some new artwork last minute, so as this show is called Prodigy, I looked at some Prodigy albums and Lost Beats came up, and it was fairly easy to ape and change beats to bears. So there we go. So that's the name of the show going forward. Whenever we talk about Star Trek Prodigy,
Yeah,
Lost
we're
Bears.
discussing the we're discussing the third episode
Yes.
of Star Trek Prodigy, because as is common for animations, the first episode was episode 1 and 2, production-wise.
Mm. So this is episode 3, which felt this felt very much more like a standard episode.
Yes, I saw someone on Twitter who referred to the show as what happens if a bunch of kids trying to escape the existential dread of Star Wars discover a Federation ship. And it's like, yeah, that feels pretty accurate for what this show is.
Yeah, and I think it's spot on, and I think it's actually it quite concisely covers some of the things that we said last week, really, because this is most certainly informed by the aesthetic of Star Wars cartoons to an extent. I know, obviously, there's the Troll Hunters stuff because the people who made this are the people who make Troll Hunters.
This has this is one of those typical third episode animated kids animated shows, episodes where like the ragtag band have to learn to kind of work together.
Yeah.
While one of them has an ego that needs to maybe be tempered down a bit.
Certainly. It hasn't probably been tempered down enough yet.
No.
But I think obviously that's going to be his story arc for at least season 1. But then, saying that, that's a typical captain. Most of them have an ego that need to be tempered, so fair enough. We see a lot more of Janeway in this episode, or the Janeway hologram. Anyway,
we get all the Janeway.
Has been programmed with plenty of Janeway sass.
Yes.
And enjoys a holo coffee, which makes perfect sense. But it felt very. It was like not in a bad way at all. But this was definitely episode 3 of a cartoon show for kids. And in particular, as this is for kids, it's going out on Nickelodeon in the States. And is it Nickelodeon here as well? Does Nickelodeon even still exist in the UK? I honestly can't remember.
I don't know.
But yeah, it's going out in Nickelodeon in the States. Like, this is very much for a lot of kids. It will be an introduction to Star Trek. Sorry. So like this is as much as it is an episode for the characters to grow and learn to work as a team. This is an episode for kids to become a bit more familiar with what Star Trek is. This felt like a training mission in the opening sequences of
like Janeway mistaking them for cadets, and also like explaining what the Federation is to them, and obviously our captain deciding like he doesn't trust whatever the idea of this Federation is, because what reason has he to trust them?
Yeah, because if realistically, it sounds like an empire.
Yeah. It's just another bunch of people in charge, and he's not got a good experience of people in charge.
Yeah. And it sounds like a massive empire, like a terrifyingly large empire. And like, obviously, when you bring up a star chart and say, oh, well, it covers like the majority of the Alpha Quadrant and some of the Beta Quadrant.
Yeah.
That's outrageous. Like,
and you do get some hints of back at the prison planet asteroid. It looks like their escape did inspire some rioting, some like uprising. That was swiftly, unfortunately, put down by the bad guys.
And the towards the end of the episode, the bad guys decide to up sticks and go and have a look for the
Prodigy.
ship. Yes.
Which you see a lot of a ship. This it's a nice ship. In fact, they've just ejected all the escape pods, but it does have a vehicle replicator.
It does, yes, which makes perfect sense. It is something that, like, to be honest, has probably been rattling around in most of our minds for a while now. Like, especially nowadays, because Star Trek quite often goes first with technology that's about to happen in real life.
Yeah.
So, like, things like phones and tablets and, like, laptops and stuff like that.
Well, we all read a book, like, a lot of people read the books like Picard does these days.
Yeah, indeed, like on a Kindle or Kindle-like device. And they excuse me. So obviously this time the replicator, the vehicle replicator, almost is informed by what's happening in real life because it looked very much like a 3D printer.
Yeah.
In the way that it was sculpting things and making what order it was making stuff. But yeah, that was very cool. Which obviously, being that this is an animation, means that they could potentially at some point make some really, really cool little ships.
Yes.
Or vehicles like cars for certain terrains or boats or you name it. And of course, it makes perfect sense as well because in theory, when you beam the thing back on board or it comes back into the ship, then you can just reuse the matter. And create the next thing you need.
The large rock girl has, I think, the best moments in this episode.
Yes.
Like the little bit with the replicators where she doesn't know anything but for gruel they ate on like the prison mines. So that's what she orders because she doesn't know what else.
And yet it was comforting to her.
Yeah.
And
Janeway's little Janeway's encouragement of it, like I like a girl who knows what she likes, kind of while she's drinking her coffee.
I mean, that was like it was very Janeway. It was so obviously you get the feeling that after the various holographic life forms, because season 7 of Voyager is all about holographic life forms. Obviously in Deep Space Nine at the same time that we had the Doctor in Voyager becoming sentient, you had the lounge singer in Deep Space Nine becoming sentient as well. So there's I suppose scope for them to have learned how to program holograms to be more human and more.
Although it's worth stating, I don't think she's sentient
yet.
Yeah.
Let's face it, she's going to be turned on enough that by the end of whatever happens, she's going to have had her own character. She will have grown beyond the programmings and the parameters of a mere Janeway hologram.
They obviously put the daughter of the bad guy into the brig.
Yep.
She escapes for a bit, and she's the one who's trying to use a vehicle replicator to get off the ship. I'll be honest. I think going forward we might need to double these up.
Oh, I think so. Yeah. I think
because I'm running out of, as much as I enjoyed it, I am running out of things to say about it.
I think the thing is that, like as we said, this was most certainly 100% an episode 3. It was a proper introduction to Star Trek for a young audience who maybe have possibly watched a little bit with mum and dad, but don't know Star Trek.
Don't get me wrong, I think it's great. I just don't have a lot to say beyond this episode other than it was good.
Yeah, it was a perfectly functional episode. I think that's the thing. Like, and obviously coming off Lower Decks, which, as we've talked about with Lower Decks. I think
Lower Decks is so reference heavy as well that you can talk about it for longer.
it is
because it leads
heavy,
you,
but it's...
it spirals you into talking about other things more than I think this does.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Lower Decks is very much meant to be Star Trek in an established Star Trek area of space. It's not necessarily anything new. It's just more. But it's also Star Trek done to the very, 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 very best that Star Trek can be done. And therefore, this Prodigy, given the, I suppose, relative restrictions of making a kids' cartoon for an audience that doesn't necessarily know what Star Trek is, as well, that we're always going to struggle a little bit in the initial stages, because this is a proper brand new product. Like, this isn't necessarily like, even like, say, obviously even Discovery, as new and different as weird as it was quite grounded in its first season, because it was like, it was about Spock's sister. Like, it was an extension of something we already know, and the only real link in this to what we already know is a hologram of Janeway. It's not even the real Janeway. And so,
and
like,
a Federation ship.
And a Federation ship. So it's got that usual look and curve.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, this is a brand new product. With a few new aliens, a couple of returning aliens. That
it seems well received so far as well. Seems well received so far as well.
Good. I'm glad, because I want to see where they can take it.
Yeah.
I think it certainly deserves. Do you know how many episodes it is?
Let me see.
Because I think the thing is, if this is the worst episode, and don't get me wrong, this is not a bad episode in the slightest. It's a.
I can assure you, being someone who watches a fair amount of kids' cartoons because I just like animation as an art, this will not be the worst episode.
But what I'm saying is, like, if this does end up being the worst episode, then I think they're in a very good place. I think, like, we're probably all right.
10 episodes first season, but obviously that's going to include probably 9 if we count.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's fine. So I think that's a good number.
Yeah,
they should be able to get through 10 quite comfortably, which means that hopefully it gets renewed for a second season. Because I think that, like, there's certainly the talent here to go further and do something quite interesting. There's hopefully it ties off a nice story arc in this one. I don't think, like, because obviously I think I would like to see at least the mining prison sorted. I think maybe the villain is the villain that could stay for the whole run. It could be that classic cartoon villain that's always after them, like, for the entire thing. Yeah, and why not?
That was meant to be an impression of Skeletor, if anyone's just wondering what the hell happened there.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I'll just explain to the audience if they're just like, what was that? It's like, it was a bad impression of Skeletor.
It was a terrible impression of Skeletor, but I mean, we
Can
don't
you do a better
expect anything. No, probably not. It depends on which Skeletor as well.
At least I try.
Well, maybe I'm wiser for not trying.
Speak of, what's the starship behind you, Matt?
The starship behind me, I think we've discussed this in a previous one.
Probably.
Is one that I got.
It's from one of those
loot crate things.
Oh well, they found it off the back of a van then, because it's from a. It's from a part.
Rhode Island.
What class?
I don't know what class it is.
I think I recognise it, but.
Yeah, it's a lovely ship though.
Yeah.
Right. A fairly modern Starfleet looking ship.
Post-Sovereign. Probably post-Sovereign class. It's
slightly smaller than a Sovereign.
It's informed by the design of a Sovereign and things by the looks of it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Bit Sovereign, bit Voyager.
Yeah.
But Prodigy even actually has a similar look to it.
Well, as I say, it's that modern
Yeah,
Starfleet thing, which it is odd because like they obviously there's like in the Star Trek official Star Trek nerdiness, there's like they do attempt to put some idea of physics into the design
yeah.
as well. So like the shape of the saucer was actually meant to have something to do with not aerodynamics, but actually to do with the with warp flight.
Yeah.
So the shape of the saucer actually does inform how fast you can go in theory, or rather how smooth you can go through warp.
Yeah,
Um,
those
and they were uh, at one point they were proposing that actually a wider saucer section would make a smoother flight, which is why in I think it was a TNG episode where they flash forward like really far in time
yeah.
to a like the Enterprise J or something like that.
It's about
It's
Enterprise.
and hmm?
Don't we see that ship in Enterprise?
It might have been in Enterprise, yeah, but it's a very, very, very wide saucer section compared to how long it is. But of course, and they talked about that in like various manuals and stuff like
Yeah.
that. That it's to do with like in universe they've discovered that the wider the saucer section, the smoother it is
But
through
then
warp.
they decided arrowheads look cooler.
Yeah, then they decided arrowheads look cooler. But then obviously that's like realistically it's because it became more of a military thing because obviously
Yeah.
they had the Borg War, they had the Dominion War and stuff like that. They need something that looks a bit fiercer and meaner.
But yeah, those ships, they were part of a
Mm.
Partworks magazines.
No, I don't.
You know those come out every 2 weeks, extremely expensive, collect the
Oh,
whole thing magazines.
the like get the first piece and the first magazine for £1, and
Yeah.
then every other piece
They
is
were.
£499.99.
That's what those ships are from.
Yeah.
One of
Oh,
those
right,
magazines.
okay.
But then they show up everywhere individually.
Yeah.
Like you got yours from Loot Crate. You can buy them off Zavi. But then
Yeah.
Zavi gets a lot of graphic novels that are part of those Partworks collections. Like they've just fallen off the back of a van somewhere. The Hook Group has gone. Thank you very much. The Hook Group is one of the, and I'm going on a widely non-Star Trek related tangent now.
Yeah.
For anyone watching who's not familiar with the Hook Group or Zavi as their main front, the Hook Group has so many online shops. They may have toned it down in recent years, but they used to have so many. Zavi being the main one that sells most things. And then they have really specific ones, like at the height of the pop craze, they had about 3 different Pop Funko shops. At one point, they ran Nintendo's UK store.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Which was weird, because you'd go on Nintendo's UK store and you're like, what? Because they all the websites use the same, like, UI, effectively.
Yeah, the same interfaces
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah.
So you have a Nintendo store and you'd be shopping them up and you're like, wait a minute. This is the Zavi website. And Nintendo run their own UK store now. They obviously took the license away. Potentially because they realised it was weird for official Nintendo products to be showing up in boxes that had a protein powder shipped in them. Full of adverts for various wine clubs and protein powder clubs.
Yeah.
Because that's what Zavi stuff tends to arrive in. And because they were all coming out of the same warehouse, even with Nintendo stuff, you'd order like an official Mario plushie from the official Nintendo store. And it would all the latest Amiibo figures. And they'd rock up in Hook Group boxes that were and for the time period they were basically just using for bigger orders the boxes that the protein powder got to warehouse in and just repurposing for boxes, which is environmentally sound, may as well. But and then you'd have like for one of those companies where they just pile boxes for tons of wine clubs and stuff like that. And it's just a weird experience to order from Nintendo and have it arrive like that. But yeah, that's my weird thoughts about the Hook Group that have nothing to do with Star Trek outside of a tangentially related. They sell starships.
Anyway, on that note, I think that's Prodigy for the week.
Yeah, and I think going forward, you might get these every other week because I think we're going to double up the episodes.
Yeah, I think that probably works. In the meantime, we are doing an obscene amount of content this week. We won't dump it all this week, obviously. After this, we're going to be doing the first episode of our rebooted double feature film club.
I'm not sure
so that'll be returning.
Yeah, it's the return to the format that launched for channel.
Yeah, because it's been a while, and obviously we're doing so much Star Trek at the moment.
Is it a reboot? Is it season 3? Who knows?
Yeah, or is it both? Like James Gunn's Suicide Squad. So have
you seen that yet?
Have
you seen it?
Yes,
yet?
I watched it the other day.
We can discuss that on the Go to the Pictures as well then.
Yes, we can. Speaking of which, tomorrow we'll be filming another episode of Double Feature and an episode all about current movies.
Yes, I've cruelly forced Matt to go and watch everything in the space of 2 days.
Well, to be honest, it's been that long since I've had I saw Bond the other week, which was the first film I've seen in the cinema since late 2019 when I went to see 1917. And since then, as of recording yesterday, I watched Dune and Venom, and today, after we're done recording, we're going to go and watch Last Night in Soho.
Dune, famously Anakin Skywalker's least favourite film.
It is. It's very much his least favourite film.
I'd love to actually, if I didn't love the film, I'd love to just review it on something like Letterboxd, like Too Much Sand.
Yeah, I felt like it got everywhere. And on that awful, fantastic note, we'll see you next time, which might be in a couple of weeks, as far as this show goes.
See you soon, and remember,
if
if you like
live long
coffee,
and prosper.
drink coffee.
Yes, indeed.